Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very celebrated author from Assam, India, Rashmi Narzary. Rashmi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rashmi is an author and a freelance editor. She has been honored with the Sahitya Academy Award for Children's Literature for her book, His Share of Sky. Her debut novel was Bloodstone, Legend of the Last Engraving. And as someone who writes so often, her forthcoming books are Whistles of the Sifong, Stories from Assam's Bodo Heartland, and The Lost Soul of Jukoroi, a YA fantasy fiction. I hope I've got the pronunciation correct.
It's Jokure,
Jukoroi.
but you're close. You're close.
Thank you. So, Rashmi, before we talk about your journey as an author, tell me about your own journey and what attracted you to writing.
I think I'd been writing from a very early stage, but earlier on it was poems mainly. So I used to look at things, and nature always fascinated me. And I had a part of my childhood in Shillong,
Mm,
which is beautiful. It still is. And I think this drew me towards nature and everything nice, and sometimes there would be sad things as well.
mm,
So I needed a mode of expressing myself. So
mhm,
I think I took to poems at that early age.
mhm,
And, you know, um, I wrote my first poem when I was in class 4 at
mhm,
the back page of my rough copy in school.
mhm,
So I got a good lecturing down from my teacher.
mhm,
But of course, she later called me in and said, Rashmi, this is a very good thing. You should carry on with your writing, with your
mm,
creativity,
mm.
but not in class when other children are attending. And if you have finished your work, please pretend you are attending.
Okay,
You're not to, yes.
right.
So this is it. But later on, I don't know when and where along the line, I switched over to story writing.
Mm,
And those were short stories
mm,
mainly.
mm.
Yeah. So this
Amazing,
is how, yes.
amazing. So, tell me about your book, His Share of Sky, and what inspired you to write it.
His share of sky is again, someone's childhood.
Mhm,
And I loved to express to the world that wherever a child is, in our parts of the country or the globe
mm,
or elsewhere, the universal feelings of joy, of laughter, of excitement, and, of feelings of deprivations,
mm,
they're all the same.
mhm,
And this particular little boy, who is the protagonist of my book, His Share of Sky,
mm,
is from rural Kokrajhar,
mhm.
my hometown.
Right.
And also to share with you, it is based on the childhood of my husband.
Okay.
When he was around 10 years old. So
Mm,
this very rural and rustic feel, the countryside, everything is so engrossing. And of
mm,
course, I didn't know him when we were that young.
mm,
But later on, when we got married, and he would sit down by the fire, and we would, take our mugs of coffee, and
mm,
he would narrate me stories from his childhood.
mm,
So this really made me think, why not write them down and take
mm,
these stories elsewhere? Let children from all over read
mm,
them. So of course there is a little bit of fictionalization,
mm.
but these are actually based on my husband Hemant Narzary's childhood.
Incredible, incredible. And this book is what got you the Sahitya Academy Award.
Right.
How did it feel to win the Sahitya Academy Award? It's a very, very big award.
It is, and to be very honest and to be very frank,
Mm,
it took a while for the news to sink in.
mm,
And it actually started sinking in when phone calls started coming and then newspapers started carrying pictures of my book and myself.
mm,
And then people started asking me for interviews. So this is when the feeling sank in. And
mm,
I told my husband, okay, you are part of it and
mm,
you get greater credit for this.
mhm,
But something which keeps you grounded is my relationship with my pets.
Mhm.
I have two dogs now.
Mhm.
There was a time when we had three,
Mhm.
but they don't know what an award is or what Moma has received.
Right.
I have to take them out for a walk and
Mhm.
twiddle my thumbs and wait for them to finish off whatever they were down there
Mhm.
for.
Mhm.
And this is what keeps you grounded. There
Mhm.
is no vanity about an award they feel.
Mhm.
They feel Moma is the same Moma with the award, without the award.
How wonderful. And how
Yes,
well you have explained this. Thank you.
thank you.
You also use a lot of your own heritage in your writing. And you just mentioned his share of sky. You took parts of it from your husband's journey or his life. How
Mhm.
does heritage influence your writing style and the themes you explore?
Our land, Ashutosh, is full of lores and legends, and we are nestled amongst nature.
Mhm.
These trees, the hills, the forests, the
Mhm.
rivers, the caves, we respect them, we revere them. We believe they are our mothers and our fathers and they are our ancestors. And they bear in their embrace all that we need to live, to love, to heal, and to grow.
Mhm.
So our lores and legends are the ones, that remind us to take care of these things.
Mhm.
So because if they are, it is only then that we are.
Mhm.
So, and I think the new generation is in search of their career, in search of so many other things.
Mhm.
They tend to lose connect with these lores and legends,
Mhm.
and which is our heritage, of course. So, which is why I feel I'm inspired to write about these, to
Mhm.
connect these kids and ourselves and those away and far from the roots, to
Mhm.
connect them back to our roots.
Mhm.
So it is this nature, these traditions that
Very
inspire
interesting.
me to, yeah, write about them.
Very
Mhm.
interesting. And what role do you believe children's literature plays in modern society?
It's a very important role, and it is basically two pronged, One is the contemporary,
Mhm.
because you through literature, it is how that kids learn a lot of things in a simpler way
Mhm.
through stories. They know about contemporary issues, about environmental issues, about their surroundings, and they are also given an exposure to peer pressure
Mhm.
to tackle situations which are a bit difficult emotionally,
Mhm.
academically, career wise. So I feel stories, if they learn through stories, if they get to read through stories, that
Mhm.
in the stories also these things happen.
Mhm.
We have to tackle hurdles, and it
Mhm.
is only after that that we get to know reach our goals.
Mhm.
So they take it easy, I feel.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this is the contemporary part. And
Right.
the other part, the I said two pronged. So the
Mhm.
other prong is that through stories, like I mentioned earlier, they get connected to their roots and their
Right.
heritage.
Right.
Yes,
Right. Very
yes.
interesting. And how do you think literature can contribute to cultural understanding and diversity in our very vast and diverse country?
It is, like an influencer.
Mm.
Like you have had the opportunity of traveling to these parts of the world,
Yeah.
but for those who have not, I
Mm.
think it is through literature that they come to know about our culture.
Mm.
And likewise, for those who have not traveled abroad from
Mm.
my part of the country, it is for them to know through literature what, other people and other countries are doing and eating and wearing.
Mm.
At the same time, there are places like the Northeast where we have so many diverse cultures and traditions, and some places are, kind of inaccessible.
Mm.
So it is here that literature plays a very important role
Mm.
to connect people from all over.
Mm.
It's not that just you have to be oceans and mountains apart. It
Mm.
is also sometimes just next door.
Correct.
You get to know about
Yeah.
them through books.
Mm. Great
Mhm.
response. Great response. And when you write, Rashmi, how do you balance the elements of fantasy and reality in your writing?
Uh-huh. I put, as I would balance the amount of salt in my soup,
Okay.
it just has to be that right balance of reality and fantasization.
Mm, mm,
But deeply thinking, you have to have a very watchful eye, a very detailed eye about your surroundings.
mm,
If I'm writing, right, like for instance, in An Unfinished Search, my latest work, when I'm writing about 1957,
mm,
in a part of the country in a part of the globe which is a
mhm,
border between India and Bangladesh, I
mm,
cannot be expecting a lady to be wearing jeans there,
mm,
or maybe in skirts and portraying my character in those
mm,
costumes.
mm,
So this is how, even if I am fictionalizing, I
mhm,
have to give an eye to whatever was evident and
mm,
relevant in those times.
mm,
So this is that balance.
mm.
I have to have a very watchful reading of
Yeah.
that surrounding the situation and, of course, the characters I
Mm,
depict.
mm.
So this
Fascinating.
is how the balance comes in.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And
Mhm.
before we started recording, you were telling me that you are a Bodo. So my
Uh-huh.
question is, are there any Bodo folklore or cultural elements that you particularly enjoy weaving into your stories?
Yes, we are a very happy and lively people.
Mm,
We love life, and of course, we are very close to nature once
mm,
again. And
mm,
our people are very adept at weaving,
mm,
and we love food,
mhm,
good food,
mm,
yes.
mm,
So this is what I love about my culture, and I love to weave these into the fabric of my stories.
mm,
This particular situation about grandparents sitting around a fire in the evenings in
mm,
winter
mm,
and how they narrate stories. Our stories and our history has been documented only recently.
mm,
And before that, it was all oral tradition.
mm,
And this is how the traditions came down from, the old folks and then handing them down. And as these were being narrated around the fire, there
mm,
would be a constant flow of, we have this rice beer,
mhm,
which we call Joe.
mhm,
Yes. And this is from Joe, I'm just deviating from the answer
mhm,
a bit. This Joe is what goes into my next upcoming book,
mm,
Joe Kure.
mhm,
So Kure means a ball,
mhm.
and it's a ball of the rice beer that we homebrew.
I see.
So this is it by the fire when old folks are sitting and narrating their tales to the younger people. There is a constant flow of normally
Mm,
Joe and snacks, which is normally roasted tapioca, roasted yam, and roasted potatoes.
mm.
You know, it's I'm getting carried away now.
No,
It's
but
such a lovely
your descriptions are
situation.
so amazing. I can almost visualize a little fire with grandparents
Yes.
and people sitting and all the food coming and the jokure coming. So
Yes.
it's
And
amazing.
in between, there will be little verses of songs because they are a blend of these folklores.
Hmm.
So every lore, most lores have little songs in between, little verses in between.
Mm,
So, and sometimes there will be the flute playing in between.
yeah.
So this is what I love to weave into my stories about my tradition.
Mm.
Hmm.
How amazing. How amazing. And
Thank you.
you're so right about flute. I mean, I play the flute and it is
Wow,
such a powerful instrument
it
and
is.
part of all our stories, starting with Lord Krishna.
Hmm.
So,
Yes, very true. Very
absolutely.
true.
But now
And
coming, sorry.
Ashutosh, I'm
Mm.
sorry, I'm budging
No,
in.
no, no.
We Boros feel that whenever we pray, we need a kind of music to appease
Mm.
the deities.
Correct.
And the most basic instrument is the flute.
Correct.
So the it is the flute, and it requires very basic skill, but you breathe into it.
Mm.
Your soul goes into it.
Absolutely right.
This is why we feel that the flute is very important in all our customs, our traditions.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you. What a great response.
Thank you.
My next question to you is that when you write about complex human relations and emotions.
Mhm.
What are some of the challenges or what are some of the processes you follow in your writing?
Yes, this is something, and I like to observe people
Mm,
and how they carry themselves. And it is not that one grouchy, gloomy person is
mm,
always grouchy and gloomy.
mm,
There will be mood swings. Something will make him happy, something will make him grouchy. So, what is it? It is not exactly when I'm writing my story that I face this challenge of,
mm,
blending emotions in people, human emotions.
mhm,
It is my observation always, all through. So I pick something from here, I pick something from there, and
mm,
this is how I blend the human emotions. And because the same person may have both emotions and all emotions, so it is not that way that I stick to just one emotion.
mm,
And all through the story, it could
mm,
be like this. The emotions depend on the outline, the story, the flow of the story.
mm.
Mhm.
Fascinating. My next question to you is about technology, and
Oh,
a lot of authors are now facing the challenge of how technology is changing the way their books are being read.
mhm.
My question is, how do you think children's literature has changed in the context of the digital age?
Ashutosh, it is how you look at it
Mm,
because children are getting an access to global literature.
right.
Till some time back, it would
Mm,
be just the books you could walk into the bookstore and buy.
mm,
But now you could order online. That is possible because the digital age, and
mm,
you could also read online,
mm,
and reading has become so much simpler.
mm,
At the same time, there is this thing about graphic literature. They are getting literature where you can interact, and you're given something and you can outline your own story, create
mm,
your own
mm,
story.
mm.
Children are getting access to anime and manga,
Correct.
and I think it's okay as long as the kid gets to read and write and learn. And
Mm,
I'm very forgetful that way. I make mnemonics out of every little thing so I
mhm,
can remember my points.
mm,
So I remember lyric with a W in place of Y.
mhm.
So I think it's okay as long as kids get to learn for
Correct.
L, W for write,
Mm,
and I for imagine,
mm,
and R for read, and
mm.
C for create, because
Wow.
eventually it is for
Mm,
them to create.
mm,
They have to imagine and create. And
mm,
if they are just spoon fed all the while, they stop growing. So the digital world is helping us to uh, achieve this.
mm,
And it's okay if they're liking to read in a Kindle.
mm,
It's okay if their characters are moving around and making noise. I think it will help them arouse their interest for reading.
mm,
Because once they grow out of children's literature, but during their childhood, if the interest is already sown, I
mm,
think it will be easier for them to switch on to printed literature.
mm.
So that's it. Our purpose is to make children read.
Very interesting.
Yes.
So I'd like to now move, Rashmi, to your forthcoming books. Uh,
Hmm.
Whistles of the Sifung, Stories
Yes.
from Assam's Bodo Heartland, and The Lost Soul of Jukore.
Hmm.
Tell me about both these books and when are they scheduled for release?
Whistles of the Siphon is scheduled for February.
Okay.
It's a February release.
Mhm.
And Siphon is a flute in Bodo.
Ah.
So this book has eight short stories, and it is about three friends,
Mm,
all above their 60s and maybe around touching 70s.
mm,
One plays the flute,
mm,
one plays the long drum, which we Boros call
yeah.
the kam,
Mm,
and one plays the cymbals, which we
mhm,
Boros call the jota.
mhm,
So it is through the tunes of the flute that the stories are told, weaving the fabrics of, how fire, how the skies, how, they all bow down to music.
mhm,
And eventually, it is the whistles of the siphon, whistles of the flute, which
mm,
bind human beings to nature, to
mm,
everything around us, and most importantly, to one another.
Mm.
It is music. And it is also music that we need to appease the deities. It is also music that we are bound to nature, which sustains us.
Mhm.
So, Whistles of the Siphon is about these tales.
Mhm.
And The Lost Soul of the Jokere is about a soul. This is a very little vulnerable soul. It is not, normally when children think it's a soul, it's a scary one.
Mm.
It's fearful. So just to, bring them out of it, all souls are not bad.
Mhm.
Some spirits are
Yeah.
good and they are loving, they're endearing.
Mm.
So this spirit comes out of the in a temple of Shiva,
Mm.
whom we call Bodo in
Mm.
Bodo.
Mm.
So this and it escapes.
Mm.
So this entire thing is an adventure of a squirrel, a rooster, and a spider,
Mhm.
along with a 10-year-old girl again, and how the adventures come and eventually they find the spirit and where to put it back. So this entire story is about that.
Oh, amazing. And
I
when
don't
you
know how readers take the story, but I thoroughly enjoyed writing it and I love
absolutely,
going through it. Yes.
absolutely. So I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out the books of Rashmi Narzary, and I'm going to also go and check them out and get my
Thank
own
you so
copy of
much.
these. Thank you
Thank you so
again.
much.
So I have time for one more question for you,
Yes.
and this is for the many, many, many people who will listen to our conversation. What would you say, Rashmi, are three lessons you would like to share with aspiring authors?
Yes. One, aspiring authors and especially for children's
Yeah.
authors,
Mm.
yes. Uh, I personally feel the language should be very simple, very relatable,
Mm.
and it should be flowing like we are just conversing.
Mm. Right.
It is not nice if you need a dictionary by you or you
Yeah.
need to Google for meaning every now
Mm.
and then. It
Mm.
breaks the flow of your reading.
Mm.
That is one. And secondly, I like to stay away from cliches.
Mm.
Yes. And I would, of course, prefer it's okay if you can use just simile. That way, children tend to learn quicker. They can relate better.
Right.
For instance, if I just say that the child is weeping and tears trickle down her cheeks,
Mm.
and after that, if I add tears trickle down her cheeks as raindrops on a window pane.
Mm.
So, there is a relation between the two.
Correct.
So, the learning process is better for the child.
Mm.
And yes, so this is it. And thirdly, I think, yes, we need to feel whom we are targeting,
Mm.
and accordingly we do it.
Mm.
Because if I write for children and if I'm writing things which are too heavy for the
Mm.
child,
Mm.
so this is not the right way.
Very
So these are
interesting.
the three things. And
Very, very
third,
interesting.
and also, yes, we need to be passionate about whatever we are
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
and believe in yourself.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And on that note, Rashmi, and your amazing lessons, keep your language simple, stay away from cliches, write for your target audience, and
Hmm.
be passionate. Thank you
Yes.
so much for
Yes.
speaking to me about your own journey. Thank you for speaking to me about your books,
It was
about
a
what
privilege.
goes into writing these books and your forthcoming books. Thank you
It
again.
was a privilege. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.